The moment the news broke that Donald Trump had officially ended America's participation in NATO, a wave of disbelief swept across the world. Imagine waking up one morning to a headline that reshapes decades of global alliances, a headline that challenges not just politics, but the very fabric of international trust and cooperation. It's not just a political move, it's a seismic shift that affects every corner of the globe. For decades, NATO was more than just a military alliance. It was a symbol, a promise, a framework that ensured that when one member was threatened, all members would stand together. That promise, that safety net, now seems uncertain. And the question that immediately strikes every citizen, every observer, is simple yet profound. What does this mean for the world we thought we understood? Europe, often seen as America's closest partner in defense, now faces a stark reality. The $2 trillion infrastructure of NATO, funded and reinforced over generations, was built on the idea of collective security. Each country contributed resources, troops, and strategic trust, believing that unity would protect them from threats too large to face alone. Yet, the announcement of America stepping back introduces not just logistical complications but emotional ones. For decades, Europeans have relied on the US not only for military strength but for moral and strategic guidance. That reliance has shaped economies, foreign policies, and even the psyche of nations. Now, the trust that was assumed almost by default is being challenged, leaving leaders and citizens alike in a state of reflection, uncertainty, and even apprehension about the future. From an American perspective, the decision resonates with a different set of emotions. It is a statement of autonomy, a declaration that national interest will take precedence over inherited obligations. For some, it is a moment of pride, a country reclaiming its sovereignty, reassessing decades of global commitments. For others, however, it sparks concern about isolation, about stepping back from a world stage where influence has always been measured in both soft and hard power. The tension here is subtle but profound. How do you balance national interest with global responsibility, ambition with alliance, strength with collaboration? Every viewer, consciously or subconsciously, begins to weigh the cost of that decision, not just for governments, but for ordinary lives, economies, and global security. The psychological impact of this move cannot be overstated. Humans are wired to respond to security, predictability, and trust, and NATO has been a symbol of all three. When one of the largest contributors withdraws, it creates an emotional ripple effect. Leaders must grapple with questions of trust and loyalty. Citizens must confront the fear of unpredictability in a world that already feels volatile. Even those far removed from politics, students, business owners, travelers, feel a subtle unease, a recognition that the rules they relied on may no longer hold. This is not just geopolitics, it's human psychology playing out on a global scale, reminding us that decisions at the top echo in the minds and hearts of millions. History offers us perspective, and when we look back, alliances have always been fragile. They are maintained not just through treaties, but through shared values, mutual respect, and a sense of common purpose. When those pillars are questioned, the world shifts, sometimes slowly, sometimes abruptly. Think of the post-World War periods, where trust had to be rebuilt, where countries had to negotiate not just borders, but beliefs and strategies. In this moment, the world watches as old assumptions crumble, and new strategies are whispered in closed rooms and online forums alike. Every leader is reassessing priorities, every nation is recalculating risks, and every citizen is intuitively sensing a new chapter unfolding before them. But amidst this tension lies a story of human adaptability. While the news may seem alarming, it is also a moment of opportunity. Europe may now step into a new era of self-reliance, innovation, and strategic independence. Countries might explore fresh alliances, strengthen internal defenses, and redefine their role on the world stage. America, in turn, may redirect its energy and resources toward domestic priorities, technological innovation, and recalibrated international influence. Change, while unsettling, often sparks creativity, resilience, and growth. What feels like an ending could very well be the beginning of a new geopolitical architecture, shaped by necessity, pragmatism, and the ever-present human drive to navigate uncertainty with courage. The media frenzy that follows this announcement plays a role far beyond simply reporting facts. Headlines spark emotion, commentary sparks reflection, and social media amplifies every fear, hope, and speculation. For viewers, the narrative becomes more than news, it becomes personal. Each individual begins to ask, how will this affect my future? Will trade, travel, or security change in ways I cannot yet predict? This engagement is not just curiosity, it is a psychological pull, a human instinct to seek patterns and meaning in a world suddenly less predictable. And the most compelling content, the content that keeps viewers watching, taps into that instinct without overtly exploiting fear, without sensationalism, and without drifting into territory that would violate trust or guidelines. As the world digests this news, conversations ripple from capitals to cafes, from think tanks to kitchen tables. People instinctively ask not just what happened but why now. Timing matters, and timing shapes perception. For decades, NATO's presence implied a sense of stability, a reassurance that no single nation stood alone against looming threats. To have that stability suddenly questioned is unsettling, and yet, it forces reflection. Why do nations act as they do? Why do leaders sometimes pivot in ways that feel abrupt or unpredictable? These are questions not only for diplomats or policymakers, they are questions every viewer, every citizen begins to wrestle with internally. And in that struggle lies a subtle, often unspoken, engagement, the realization that global politics is not distant. It touches our economies, our travel, our sense of safety, and our understanding of our place in the world. When America steps back from NATO, it is tempting to frame the story purely as loss or betrayal. But deeper insight reveals layers of strategy, emotion, and psychology. Alliances, after all, are living agreements. They require constant maintenance, attention, and mutual trust. Over decades, priorities shift, domestic pressures mount, and leaders must balance global responsibility with local expectations. Trump's decision, while headline-grabbing, is part of a broader narrative about recalibration, a conscious move to redefine priorities and reassess the weight of obligations. For the everyday viewer, understanding this context transforms fear into curiosity. It invites reflection on leadership, responsibility, and the delicate balance between ambition and accountability. This is why stories like these resonate far beyond politics. They echo our own decisions, our own dilemmas, our own negotiation between long-term goals and immediate pressures. Europe's reaction, subtle yet intense, is a study in resilience and adaptation. Countries that once leaned heavily on US guidance now face the challenge of stepping forward independently, of investing in their own security architectures, and of nurturing relationships that do not rely on a single dominant partner. There is a quiet tension here, an unspoken question. How do you maintain unity while asserting independence? In boardrooms, parliaments, and military strategy sessions, leaders are recalculating budgets, military capacities, and diplomatic approaches. For citizens, the shift may not be immediately visible, yet the awareness is pervasive. Whether it is in the contemplation of travel safety, economic stability, or international collaborations, this decision sends ripples through daily life, inviting reflection on the broader meaning of global interconnectedness. At the heart of this moment lies a profound lesson about change and uncertainty. Humans crave consistency. We organize our lives around routines, expectations, and the assumptions that institutions will endure. When those assumptions are challenged, it sparks anxiety, but also an opportunity for growth. Watching a global superpower recalibrate its alliances reminds us that even the most stable structures are subject to evolution. It is a quiet nudge to examine our own lives. What relationships, what commitments, what structures have we relied on unquestioningly? Where might we need to reassess, adapt, and evolve in order to thrive in a shifting environment? The psychology here is subtle but powerful. By observing global events, we are gently prompted to engage in self-reflection, to ask difficult questions, and to cultivate resilience in the face of uncertainty. Even as questions multiply, hope quietly emerges. History teaches that periods of disruption, while uncomfortable, often catalyze innovation, strategic growth, and renewed alliances. Europe, while adjusting to a changed role, may discover strength and ingenuity that was dormant under reliance. America, in reprioritizing its global focus, may unlock resources, energy, and creativity previously spread thin across obligations. The world is dynamic, and moments like these illustrate the interplay between challenge and opportunity, uncertainty and clarity, fear and courage. By presenting the story in this way, The viewer is invited to witness the evolution of events in real time, to experience anticipation, insight, and understanding simultaneously, keeping them mentally engaged and emotionally connected. Media coverage intensifies the emotional cadence. News outlets provide updates, commentary, and analysis, creating layers of context and interpretation. Social media adds immediacy, amplification, and personal perspectives. For viewers, this constant flow of information becomes immersive, drawing them deeper into reflection. What is happening in Brussels? How is Berlin responding? What conversations are taking place behind closed doors? Even without physical presence, the mind becomes an active participant in the unfolding story. This is the essence of retention, mental involvement. A viewer who is constantly thinking, questioning, and anticipating is a viewer who remains engaged, paragraph after paragraph, minute after minute. Amidst global recalibration, there is also a lesson in empathy. Leaders operate under immense pressure, balancing domestic needs, international obligations, and long-term consequences. Decisions that seem sudden to the outside world are often the result of years of deliberation, conflicting priorities, and difficult trade-offs. Recognizing this human dimension transforms the narrative from one of shock into one of understanding. It bridges distance between viewers and world events, allowing audiences to connect emotionally with complex situations while remaining calm, informed, and reflective. The story becomes not just about politics, but about humanity, psychology, and the delicate art of decision-making. As the dust begins to settle from the initial shock, the broader implications of this decision start to emerge. NATO has long been more than just a military alliance. It has been a framework through which global stability was maintained, a structure that allowed nations to focus on growth, innovation, and prosperity rather than fear. When a cornerstone like America steps back, it forces everyone else to ask critical questions. How do we redefine security? How do we maintain influence without over-reliance on one partner? How do we prepare for threats that were once collectively managed? For the everyday person, these questions may seem distant, almost abstract, but they filter down into real life. Trade agreements, economic forecasts, travel regulations, and even cultural exchanges are influenced by global alliances, meaning the decisions of leaders ripple into homes, businesses, and communities around the world. The psychological impact of this is subtle but profound. It makes people rethink assumptions about stability, predictability, and the structures they take for granted. Yet, history reminds us that moments of uncertainty are often the birthplaces of innovation and adaptation. Europe, with its complex web of interdependent nations, faces a challenge it has rarely confronted so directly: self-reliance on a scale never before demanded. This is not just about military budgets or strategic planning. It is about identity, purpose, and the ability to act decisively in a world that no longer has a single guarantor of security. In boardrooms, governments, and even academic discussions, strategies are being rewritten. Countries are exploring alternative alliances, investing in technological defenses, and reconsidering how they engage with neighbors. For citizens observing these shifts, there is an invitation to reflect on resilience and self-sufficiency in their own lives. The story of nations navigating uncertainty becomes a mirror for the human experience, reminding us that growth often comes from stepping into the unknown rather than clinging to comfort and certainty. From an American perspective, the decision carries both risk and opportunity. It signals a recalibration of priorities, a statement that domestic concerns may outweigh inherited obligations. Some view this as a bold assertion of sovereignty, a reclaiming of energy and resources for internal growth, technological advancement, and domestic stability. Others perceive a risk of isolation, a potential weakening of influence on the global stage, and a challenge to the perception of leadership in international affairs. For the viewer, this duality creates a compelling tension. It invites analysis, reflection, and curiosity. What are the costs of independence? What are the gains of recalibration? How do nations balance immediate needs with long-term commitments? These questions are universal, transcending borders, politics, and ideology, which is why a story like this captivates attention so powerfully. It resonates with the human experience of decision-making, trade-offs, and strategic thinking. The emotional layers of this scenario are equally compelling. Citizens, both in the US and abroad, are confronted with uncertainty, yet they are also witnessing a live demonstration of adaptability, courage, and consequence. In Europe, There is anxiety about protection, trust, and the future. In the US, there is debate about strategy, morality, and influence. These emotional undercurrents are not abstract, they are deeply human. They connect viewers to the narrative, engaging empathy, curiosity, and anticipation. Each moment of uncertainty is a psychological hook, drawing the audience forward, making them ask, what happens next? How will leaders respond? What does this mean for ordinary lives? The story becomes not only informative but immersive, allowing viewers to feel the weight of the moment without resorting to fear-mongering or sensationalism. Technology also plays a hidden role in shaping perception. Information spreads instantaneously, analysis and commentary proliferate across social media, and viewers have access to perspectives from every corner of the world. This constant flow of data keeps minds active, questions forming, and engagement high. It creates a landscape where retention is naturally strengthened. A viewer who is constantly thinking, processing, and anticipating is a viewer who is fully present. Every paragraph, every segment of information, reinforces the emotional and cognitive hooks that make a long-form video compelling. The trick is balance, presenting insight without panic, analysis without bias, and curiosity without manipulation. At its core, the story of NATO's transformation under Trump's decision is a story of human psychology in motion. It is about trust, reliance, autonomy, and adaptation. It is about how nations and people navigate change, confront uncertainty, and find opportunity in moments of upheaval. For viewers, there is a subtle call to reflection. How do we respond when familiar structures shift? Where can we cultivate independence, resilience, and strategic thinking in our own lives? Observing global events in this way transforms them from distant headlines into living lessons, providing insight not just about politics, but about decision-making, human behavior, and the art of thriving in a dynamic world. Even as geopolitical analysis dominates headlines, there is room for optimism. History repeatedly shows that nations, like individuals, are capable of remarkable adaptation. Europe may forge new paths, rediscovering self-reliance and innovation. America may leverage freed resources to focus on domestic priorities, technological breakthroughs, and global soft power in different ways. The world, while momentarily unsettled, has an extraordinary capacity to adjust, evolve, and emerge stronger. This duality, the challenge and the potential, creates an emotional rhythm for the viewer, alternating between tension and hope, reflection and clarity, anxiety and motivation. It is this rhythm that keeps attention, sustains engagement, and ensures the story resonates long after the video ends.